Welcome, everyone. Before we begin, I want to first acknowledge that the University of Minnesota Twin Cities is located on traditional, ancestral, and contemporary homelands of Indigenous people, including Dakota land ceded and taken in the treaties of 1837 and 1851. The History Department recognizes, and many of our faculty and students investigate, the complex and layered history of this place. It is important to acknowledge the peoples on whose land we live, learn, and work as we seek to improve and strengthen our relations with our tribal nations. We also acknowledge that words are not enough. We must ensure that our institution provides support, resources, and programs that increase access to all aspects of higher education for our American Indian students, staff, faculty, and community members. So again, welcome this evening. I'm Sarah Chambers. I'm the chair of the History Department, and I'm really glad to see you all joining us here this evening. Those of you who have attended the book club in the past will know that Clayton Smith has been our facilitator since the book club was established during the pandemic by my predecessor, Ann Waltner, and he's been an invaluable support to the program. So we really thank him, and he will continue to facilitate today and be behind the scenes, making sure. In fact, we had a little glitch right before coming on, and he handled that. But I also want to introduce that we have a transition going on, and Ashley Harville will be taking over the facilitation of the book club. So we'll be sad not to have Clayton online in future meetings, but we're really pleased to welcome Ashley aboard. So normally this series is an opportunity for us to feature books written by faculty in our department and alumni from our department. But this evening, we're going to switch things up a little bit because we are really honored to have with us in the History Department hosting a distinguished historian and faculty member from the Ukraine. And so we want to take advantage of that to, instead of discussing a particular book, to really benefit from his immense knowledge of the history of both Russia and the Ukraine, to provide us background and context on the current crisis and conflict ongoing there. So he is going to speak for a while and then be in conversation with our colleague, Igor Chukarin. And then towards the end of the hour, there'll be a chance for you to pose questions. And you can go ahead when questions occur to you and put those in the chat. And then But let me just first say a welcome to Oleksandr, or Alex Komarenko, who's on the history faculty at Taras Shevchenko National University of Kyiv, where he teaches on various topics related to European and Russian history. He's been a visiting professor many places, in Turkey, Japan, Iowa, and at Hamline University over in St. Paul. And we were really pleased in the History Department to be able to collaborate with the Institute for Global Studies to bring Professor Komarenko here for this semester and the coming fall semester. He's published several books and numerous articles on the history of Russia and Ukraine and on international relations more broadly. But as I said, rather than discussing a particular book today, he will be sharing with us his knowledge of the historical background to the current situation there. And indeed, he's teaching a class about this for university students that started yesterday. And I could see they were already very excited about the class. And I'm excited to hear what he has to say today. He will be joined in conversation this evening with Igor Chukarin, a faculty member in the History Department who specializes in the history of Eastern Europe in a transnational framework. And so he will have a set of very insightful and thought-provoking questions for Professor Komarenko after we get a little introduction. So with that, I'm going to turn things over first to Alex or Professor Komarenko to provide a little bit of a synopsis, and then we'll start taking questions from Igor and then from all of
Sarah, thank you very much, really, Hayol. And again, I'm very happy to see all of you and each of you, as well as let me express my deep gratitude, not from personally from myself, but from all of the Ukrainians for the significant help and situation. I understand that you also have not an extra money, but anyway, thank you for your kind help. Also, please forgive me that I was not able to attend actually appointed our meeting on October. That's why thanks to University of Minnesota, I am able to be here now. Well, Sarah, would you please, how much time I have for a little introduction?
Sure, if you want to take 8 or 10.
Check me if I will overjump this, yes, because maybe I will be so exciting. You know, yes, this semester I am teaching a course in University of Minnesota in esteemed Department of History named Russia versus Ukraine, Past and Present. Just taking into consideration my very, very modest time, let me share with you just the fundamental key points of this indeed uncompromised topic, Russia and Ukraine, the Russians and the Ukrainians. Point number one, definitely, whatever we are talking about, the Russians and the Ukrainians are very close to each other. It's obvious, because both of them, together with Belarusians, are Eastern Slavic people. Eastern Slavic people. It looks like Denmark and Sweden. It looks like France, Germany, or Italy during the empire of Charles the Great. They are very close to each other. By the way, it was proved even by your president, Barack Obama, in 2014, when, hope you remember, Russia annexed Crimean Peninsula and United Nations just discussed the first sanctions against Russia. But even at that time, Barack Obama openly pointed it out. Don't tell us, we know that Russians and the Ukrainians are very close to each other. Then call, my dear friends, point number second. Russians, Ukrainians, and Belarusians finally in 9th century just formed up their first united statehood. United statehood, let me point it out. So, the name of this united statehood was Kievan Rus. You know, due to the fact that after the collapse of the Soviet Union, definitely all of the 15 former members of the USSR started to rewrite their own histories. Definitely, this question is not easy. So, Kievan Rus, so it's cradle to whom? To Russians, to Ukrainians, or to Belarusians? Definitely, for now, each nation just started to argue that Kievan Rus was the cradle or number one, or number two, or number three. It's obvious. Then, Kievan Rus, it's point number three, was from the mid of 19th century till the Mongol Tatar invasion of Kievan Rus in the 30s, 40s of the 13th century. Then, The indeed very important position will be the following. So, hope we understand that really whatever we are talking about in Kiev and Rus, it really was impossible to identify whom was as per any nationality, who was Russian, who was Ukrainian, who was Belarusian, right? So it was again United States. United States. Somebody like it, somebody dislike it, but you know, despite all of the emotions, it was the same. So, but you know, just one of the most important turning point in Ukrainian as well as in Russian history as well was the mid of 14th century. Why? Because from this time and for 3 centuries in a row, I mean, since mid 14th till mid 17th century, the historical ways, the historical directions of Russians and Ukrainians became directly different, directly separate. Why? Because Ukraine actually, since the mid of 14th century, was in Europe. Ukraine became a part of Europe. Why? Because Ukraine became at first a part of Lithuania, then a part of Poland, and later the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. So, Ukraine again became a part of Europe. That's why the slogan of Second Ukrainian Maidan, just we are going to Europe, frankly speaking, was incorrect. Ukraine wasn't Europe. Ukraine just was coming back to Europe during this Maidan. Ukraine was in Europe, albeit there was no independent Ukrainian statehood. Ukraine was a part of Lithuania, later Poland, later their Commonwealth. And definitely, in case instead of me, here will be a Polish historian. Excuse me, I know without my personal presence what he or she will talk to you. But how nice was the life of the Ukrainians in Poland. But hope you agree with me. In case this life was so nice, why the whole nation just raced into the Ukrainian national revolution, led by our George Washington, named Bogdan Khmelnytsky. So, my dear friends, it really was again a turning point. Yes, Khmelnytsky undertook the first attempt to re-establish Ukrainian statehood, independent Ukrainian statehood. But I am sorry, Khmelnytsky recognized that it would be impossible for him without at least one influential ally. How do you think to whom Khmelnytsky addressed for the protection and later for overlordship? Let's tell the truth. He addressed himself to Moscow Tsar and to Moscow Tsar. Why? Interesting question. But in this case, we need to remember that since the collapse of Byzantine Empire, 1453, till the first evidences of Greek revival in 20th of 19th century, Moscow Principality, later Moscow Tsardom, later Russian Empire, was the only one independent Orthodox state in the whole world. Ukrainians were and still are mainly Orthodox. That's why actually Khmelnytsky, definitely I'll study this with my student during my course, but in a few words, Khmelnytsky was forced to make a historical chance. The results were mixed. Yes, he received an overlordship from Moscow, but definitely it was the beginning of incorporation of Ukrainian lands into Moscow Tsardom, later Russian Empire. So the next point, up to the fall of 18th century, the bulk, the most part of Ukrainian lands became a part of Russian Empire, with only one exception. This exception name is Western Ukraine. Instead of Russian Empire, Western Ukraine became a part of Austria, later Austrian-Hungarian Empire. While both of the empires, Russian and Austro-Hungarian, were multi-ethnic, their policies concerning integrated population were quite different. Excuse me, all of the time, Russians really formed up an absolute majority in Russian Empire. I mean, ethnic Russians, right? So no consensus, no compromises. Russia was what? One and undivided. In contrast, even together with Hungarians, Austrian Empire formed up together with Austrians only the minority of the empire population. And they were forced to provide concessions, compromises concerning self-government, concerning culture, and concerning language. And that was and still is Ukrainian paradoxes. So very small Western Ukraine became a Ukrainian Piedmont. Hope you remember the resurgence of Italy, right? Ukrainian Piedmont, which really they were able not to preserve, but to cultivate and to develop the idea of Ukrainian independence state. One forced to kill one another, being the soldiers of antagonistic coalition. But Ukrainian was granted a with a second restore their own state. Ukraine just failed this chance due to a number of reasons. But again, till the beginning of the Second World War, we received a deja vu situation. Again, the bulk of the territory was with Lenin's, later Stalin's Soviet Union. Western Ukraine yet again became a part of Poland. And it was till the beginning of the Second World War. Then you remember, I am just checking my time, just few seconds. Then, right, Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Actually, I'm not kidding, but the real final unificator of all of Ukrainian lands was whom? Was Comrade Josip Vissarionovich Stalin. But really hope you remember an expression, the Trojan horse, right? Really, incorporation of Western Ukraine into Soviet Union became a Trojan horse for the USSR. Because, excuse me, from the mid of the 14th century, 6 centuries in a row, they were out from any kind of Russian world, right? And really, they made a significant role. Soviet Union. Ukraine again started to do what? Started to return to Europe. The reaction of Russian Federation, hope we know. Thank you very much, and hope I didn't overplayed my time.
No, it's a wonderful foundation to build on. So I'll turn it over to Igor.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Komarenko, for this introduction. I'd like to bring us to closer to the recent years, the beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022, and it was for many unexpected. I remember that students asked, like, how can we explain this? And people ask why. why did it happen, and why did Putin decide to invade Ukraine? And of course, we have learned more about Ukrainian history in the past years. Next month, we'll be entering into the third year of this war. Now people have a better understanding, but still we have many questions. And I would like to know more about your perspective regarding the origins of this conflict. And how do you situate the current war in Ukraine regarding Russia-Ukraine relationship since 1991, since the dissolution of the USSR? So is this war the result of unsolved issues dating back from the dissolution of the USSR? Can we see the Russian invasion of Georgia in 2008 a kind of prelude to what happened in Ukraine? Should we understand this war as Putin's personal war? So help us understand maybe the more recent origins of this war.
Thank you very much, Igor. Indeed, good question. I appreciate. Well, first of all, my dear friends, let me update a little bit. Actually, you're absolutely correct. The full-scale war, right, started since February 24, 222. But let me get back a little bit. What was happened in 214? Great. So Russian annexation of the Crimea, together with the starting of hybrid war in Donbass, right? So right now, in Ukraine, we have really consensus. It's a conventional wisdom for us that really the war between Ukraine and Russia started in 214. Only maybe I am just confusing a little bit. Maybe it will be not polite for me, right? But I have no alternative but to remember before this 20 years earlier, as far as I know, right? And actually, Ukraine was a unique country. Ukraine voluntary gifted the third nuclear arsenal in the world, just voluntary. Ukraine rejected. And the United States, the Great Britain, and Russian Federation became the guarants of the Ukrainian territorial integrity. I'm sorry, but 214. Yes, sanctions, perfect, but integrity. Unfortunately, no. That's why you just talked about what directly happened since the collapse of the Soviet Union. Well, exactly right. First of all, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, actually, it's to be torn. Actually, Ukraine, together with Russia, just started to find as a personal. Actually, it's a conventional wisdom, but wrong wisdom. That actually the initiator of the collapse of the USSR was the first Ukrainian president, Leonid Kravchuk. I am sorry, it's wrong. The real initiator of the collapse of the USSR was that time Russian president Boris Yeltsin. It was proved. But the question was, as I told you, really Ukraine actually had an alternative. So number one or number two. Number one was to be in the sphere of influence of Russia, but the correct question was, so in this case, should we send our guys to first or later the second Chechen war? No. That's why whatever president was in Ukraine, Kravchuk, Kuchma, Yushchenko, etc., 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 actually, they were in position to protect Ukrainian interests. And really, again, the strategic historical course, get back to Europe, really became the main course for my country. Definitely, definitely, it was not pleasant, and was not accepted for Russia. And that's why really I'm curious about, actually, Vladimir Putin openly told during his well-known Munich speech of 207 what would be the next. He openly told that in case, very well, you gifted Kosovo to Albanians, what's about the Crimea? It was 207. Excuse me, mate, I am ready to take the Crimea. No significant. I think that ongoing war was not accidental. And actually, the red line for Putin was and still is Ukrainian membership in NATO. Ukrainian membership in this is a red line. And as I just discovered, you know, I'm fear from 2 points. First, remember the mantras, right? That Putin never attacked Ukraine. Correct? Correct. Putin did this. Right now, the next mantra, what level? Putin did this in Ukraine. That's why I am very, very clear. And it's really my special pride that Ukraine and Ukrainians were able to destroy the how long will would Ukraine so in the coming February it will be 2 years. But definitely it's very hard. Definitely it's obvious that Russian army is stronger. The population of Russia is really bigger, and Russian army better armed and better. That's why really for Ukraine it's impossible to continue to fight without significant assistance from our Western partners.
If I may, I'd like to use this as a segue to my next question is, you know, there's a war fatigue. We have been, we've learned about the war. I think when I say we, I say the American public in general. But there's a war fatigue, and now the American government may not provide as much support as it did in the past. There's also among European allies the same kind of fatigue, and because you were in Ukraine just like less than a week ago, I'd like to know what is how Ukrainians deal with this, and how is the mood, and how it must be so frustrating about all the sacrifices that Ukrainians did to arrive at this point. And the big question is what next? And I just would like to hear from you about that.
Yes, Igor. Again, thank you. Really question for 100%. First of all, if you ask about the real consideration of the war, well, let me simply share with you my personal experience. Actually, I recognize that something wrong happened exactly early in the morning of February 24, 222. Just the sounds from the explosion. My worst experience with the swarm was on October 10, 222. Two Russian missiles, I'm living close to my university building. Two Russian missiles arrived just less than maybe 700, maybe 600 meters from my house. Thanks to God, my windows remain in good standing, but really sound was so huge that, excuse me, I automatically put Orthodox crest in my body. Lord, forgive me everything, because really it was something. Really it was. And how do we live? Frankly speaking, not easy. Frankly speaking, not easy. I can share with you the worst feeling, the worst attitude. Total uncertainty and, fear, especially in case in Kiev, just last days I was in my city, right? At least 2-3 times a day we have heard air raid alarms, and we just heard an explosions. I'm friendly with you. There was no explosion exactly near my house, so I am not a victim in this case, right? So my apartment was not destroyed and so on. But excuse me, just little less than 2 years, each minute, each second of my life, really, I'm just became very close to crazy, right? Because really, you just sitting, you are waiting for nothing. Hope Sarah forgive me that sometimes I was not able to answer emails in time because, excuse me, it was simply impossible. But you are just sit down and wait. Russian missile, will arrive or will not arrive, and you still will live or no. By the way, I'm just told you that 2 missiles just launched near our university. Actually, exactly 14 hours before this, I exactly was at this place. Exactly. It's my way to supermarket. So if I just figured it out to visit supermarket at the morning, I'm sorry, my dear friends, that probably for you it will be impossible to see me now. It's reality. That's the war. Higher educational system, because I am a representative of higher educational system. Higher educational system continue to work, but definitely the main part of the work we just providing online due to the reasons that number of students abroad, number of students not in Kiev, and sometimes, by the way, we just ordered to be in auditoriums. But it's strange in case raid alarm system, you have no alternative but to get together with students, you need to run to the base. Definitely, the quality of such an education is understandable, right? But definitely, the whole population just really frustrated. Frustrated, yes. Because you're right, Igor. What will be the next? Good question. And let me share this question with our allies. And excuse me, but I still cannot clarify finally the strategy of West in Ukrainian conflict, right? So the goal of the West, Ukraine should win. Very good. If so, perfect. But excuse me, in this case, instead of F-16 fighters, actually the fighters of yesterday, right? Ukraine urgently need F-22 or F-35, right? Very good. Because in case we are planning to win the war with Russia, definitely Ukrainian army necessary have to receive to get the significant advantage, right? Because otherwise, what winning, what victory we are talking about. In case Ukraine should again to contain Russia and just simply not to lose, this is another game. But in this case, I agree with you completely. What will be the next? Especially taking into consideration that under the Western calculation, just plus minus 500,000 of Ukrainians just killed. What will be the next? Because in case it's impossible for the West to grant us really the significant advantage against Russia, you are right. So maybe it's necessary to clarify this, right? That's my answer. That's my answer.
Thank you. Sarah, do we have time for one more question, or should we open the floor?
Sure. Why don't you do one more question and then others can start putting questions in the chat.
Great. I think Sarah mentioned the class you are teaching this semester is Russia versus Ukraine, past and present. And this is very exciting. Thank you for offering this class. And I was wondering, what would be the 2 or 3 main messages that you would like students to keep with them once the semester is over? What do you think they may remember, or what messages you think are the most important messages for them to remember?
Great question. Thank you, Igor. The first, really just to know the truth about the Ukraine, about the Russia, and about their relationship. Real truth, let me say so. And during my first lecture, I just pointed out that while I am filled with emotions against Russia, Russians, and so on, right? It's obvious. Definitely, as a specialist, as a professor, definitely, I just assured my students it will be no emotions during our work, because we need to know and we need to clarify the truth, right? First of all. The second point, really my concern, my desire just to prove them, study them in details that really Ukraine just was and will be on its comeback to Europe, And the third, probably main message is that, this is not accident. please remember that no, surely with the exception of Velvet Revolution in Czechoslovakia, just split into Czechia and Slovakia, but this is too small country, right? As far as I know, no one empire collapsed without blood, unfortunately. That's why it's not accidental. But I strongly hope that really sometimes it will be the same situation like Denmark and Sweden. They were strong enemies during medieval time, during modern time, and so on. But right now, again, they are very close to each other, and really they are allies, etc., etc., etc. I remember France and Germany. Indeed, historical opponents, right? Right now, they are allies in very good relationship and so on. But it's good idea. It's good idea just to live to this. Unfortunately, I am not sure that I will, but I hope so. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll invite those of you to put questions into the chat. Patricia Lorsan has put more of a comment maybe than a question, but sort of picking up on the point, Alex, that you made that this war didn't start 2 years ago, but in fact, its origins are, well, they could be quite deep, but certainly back to the disputes over Crimea that as early as 2007, when Putin indicated that he's interested in the Crimea and then invades, as you pointed out. And I guess her point is that the West also was not reacting to those advances in a timely way. So I don't know if you want to say any more about that. We also have a question from Catherine Bisson. How do you define Europe when you talk of Ukraine returning to Europe? As you know, Europe is deeply divided within the EU and without the EU. What would Ukraine be returning to? What is, how would you define Europe? So those are a couple questions.
Thank you, Sarah. First of all, thank you for questions. How to enter? Well, definitely, you know as I do that Europe is quite different. Europe, this is Scholz, Macron, and on the other hand, Europe is Viktor Orban, Robert Fico in Slovakia, and right now the Prime Minister of Netherlands, right? But anyway, Ukrainian goal just to enter the European Union, not to any country, but to the Union. Whether or not it's realistic, let me be honest with you, very hard question and too complicated. In formal terms, excuse me, but my professional level cannot allow me to tell that Ukraine are ready in formal terms to join the European Union. Let me say so, right? Because actually all of us, or the bulk of us, known, for instance, about Copenhagen conditions, right? About the Washington consensus, etc., etc., etc. A long line of requirements, a long line of necessary things to be done prior to the European Union membership. How it will be, definitely, as you, I don't know. But taking into consideration the real economical, political, financial, etc., situation in Ukraine. My concern is that in case European Union, I don't know how, will agree to take this Ukraine, definitely it will be, first of all, political decision. Political, only political. Because unfortunately, there is no economic base, because, excuse me, the bulk of Ukrainian economy was simply destroyed by the war, right? So definitely it's impossible due to financial situation. Because even in our university, we just know very good that actually Ukraine has no real budget. Our salaries, yes, I agree, just cut it, but our salaries, it's from, first of all, United States assistance, right? We know this. That's why informal terms, Ukraine is not ready to join the European Union. But right now, as far as I know, the number of members of the EU just raised the question just to accelerate the membership of my country. Yeah, be sure, I'm ready to be in European Union. Personally, yes, no mistake, right? But I am a realist, and I am to make realistic suggestions and conclusion. Probably this. Well, well, Ukrainian. I'm just checking the question. Oh, Todd, my pleasure to see you. I'm afraid that the West has a short-term view of the time. We wanted Russia to lose more than we wanted Ukraine. Exactly, Todd. Actually, thank you for your help. Thank you for your help. Because right now, everybody in Ukraine knows that actually, we were and still are armed with the aim not to lose, not to lose. But as I told you, definitely nobody arms, and I'm not sure will arm in order to win. As I told you, instead of yesterday's F-16, which Zelensky requested on bended knees, right? Actually, we need to speak about F-22, F-35, etc., etc. Unfortunately, it's no. But destroy Zelensky politically, actually, surely I'm far from idealization of Zelensky, definitely. But for now, yes, to undertake the presidential elections, and actually it needs to be conducted in Ukraine. But you know, in what time, how to provide these elections, I am not sure, frankly speaking, because how the process of voting will take place, especially taking into consideration millions of Ukrainians abroad, right? Millions of Ukrainians in army, millions of Ukrainians are right now are refugees in Ukraine itself, and how to register them, you know. It's a couple of huge questions, and nobody knows what to be done with this. I agree that really it's not ideal decision to postpone the elections up to the uncertain time. But it's really his policy. Joseph, will Ukraine be able to survive with the assistance of Poland, Baltic states, and Finland? Does Putin really think that he can match to Berlin? You know, I don't think Putin is in a position to be in Berlin. I don't think. Frankly speaking, assistance of Poland, Baltic state, and Finland definitely not comparable with the assistance provided by the United States, by Germany, by France, and etc. Definitely, we respect this assistance greatly, trust me, yes. But definitely it will be not enough. But I am not sure really that Putin is in a position to continue this aggression. Guess Putin would like simply to just to fix the status quo. I think so. Definitely ideal for Putin, just try to cut Ukraine from the Black Sea. I mean, the capturing of Odessa, as well as the second city of Ukraine, Kharkov. Because actually the situation here is very heavy. Let me say so. But that's what I think. Well, and again, please.
And if I may, Professor Komarenko, do you think that a frozen conflict in Ukraine would advantage Putin, like a frozen conflict, or frozen situation, what we have also in Bosnia and Herzegovina, where you have a country that is not functioning, and this could be at Putin's advantage?
I agree with you, Igor, but guess, is it possible in this situation to find an ideal decision? I guess no. It's impossible, right? Any decision will be plus positive and minus negative, right? Just to freeze this conflict like a Korean variant or something like this. Actually, it's possible, but the interesting situation is it in case Ukrainians just asked about this, right? The answer usually the following: no, never. Up to victory, up to the borderlands of 1991. I mean the borderlands of Soviet Union. But next question: are you ready to be a volunteer into the Ukrainian army? Who knows? Maybe no. It's a question. Who will fight, right? Because right now, it's the biggest problem for Ukraine, lack of mobilization source. Because really, due to the number of negative reasons, just 100,000 of males, just from 18 to 16, illegally, let me repeat, illegally crossed the border, right? No, surely due to bribes, due to neckties, to power, etc., etc. So, what we have in Ukraine, actually, the great number of Ukrainians for now just have deferment from the military conscription, right? For instance, it was myself, right, as a professor of university, right? But really, who will fight? Who will fight? It's a good question. Does NATO or the United States ready just to forward their troops to the Ukraine? Guess no, right? It's obvious. Guess no. Especially in 224, speaking about the United States, right? Because electional year and nothing else. That's why really, anyway, sometime this war just to be stopped and negotiation definitely to be started, right? Negotiations, just what are we talking about? I am sorry, but any negotiation means compromises, right? Compromises. In case I'd like to receive something, I need to make a concessions of something, right? And in this case, let's see, because I'm just personally, guess I'm not wrong. I'm just recognized something is changing in consideration of the West and in consideration of Ukrainian power. Because before the counter-offense of Ukrainian army, right? Unfortunately, with very, very modest and not significant results due to the lack of real offensive armed weapons, etc., etc. You know, the rhetoric became a little bit different. Before this, only victorious rhetoric, which just conquer Russian would be defeat, etc., etc. Right now, actually nobody started to remember about the victory. Right now, just started to speak about the defense in the Ukraine. Defense. That's why, really, I guess right now, actually the elaboration of any kind of peaceful initiative is still in progress. What can I say, right? What it will be as a result, let's see. And indeed, it will be my pleasure to meet with you again and comment. And I guess Igor and esteemed Sarah will help us to do this.
Yes, well, yes, this hour has flown by. I'm grateful that Alex will be with us for the year. It's been a very sobering hour, and certainly think about all the casualties of this war and how deeply grieved we are about that. I'm going to bring the formal book club to a close. We may be able to ask Alex and Igor to stay on for a few minutes afterwards. Some of you are old friends and colleagues and may want to greet him. But in the meantime, I really want to thank him very much, both for this hour with us today, but also for the really informative class that he is offering. And also to thank Igor for coming along in the conversation, to Clayton for the support he's offered all along to the book club. So we want to give him a special thanks tonight as we welcome Ashley. There's a recording, and you will receive a recording of this event in the email. We, in February, will be featuring PhD alumna Andrea Robertson, who transitioned from writing and teaching the history of colonial North America, especially Puritan New England, to now a successful career as an author of historical fiction. So she'll have a conversation with Kirsten Fisher about these different forms of writing. I also want to thank those who have made donations, particularly alumni Ken and Jan Talley, that have allowed us to bring Professor Komarenko as a visitor this year to the University of Minnesota, and also other donors to the History Department General Fund. Often at this point in the book club, I mentioned all the support we receive for graduate fellowships that goes into the future books of our alumni, but it also, those donations allow us to take advantage of special opportunities like this to have such a distinguished visiting professor. And I think that Clayton will put the link, should you be so moved to make a donation on those grounds. So again, many thanks to all of you for joining us this evening, and of course to Alex and Igor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, my dear friends. Thank you. Bye.